Welcome back to our YouTube channel, Seeds of Kindness. Asterisk. Here we are with another kindness story, but today's is unlike anything we've ever shared before. It's a story that takes place not on the ground, not in a city or village or hospital, but at the very edge of Earth's sky where blue fades into black. A place where only the bravest souls dare to travel. A place where one woman saved 200 lives at 300,000 feet and reminded the world what courage truly looks like. Asterisk. It began with Astra 9, the most advanced civilian research vessel ever built. Unlike a jet or shuttle, Astra 9 was part aircraft, part orbital glider, a floating laboratory designed to skim the border between the atmosphere and space. The mission was never supposed to be dangerous. The crew consisted of only 24 scientists, along with nearly 200 volunteers, researchers, and specialists studying high-altitude aerosols, microgravitational effects on organic tissue, and solar particle behavior. They were up there to learn. They were up there for science. They were certainly not up there expecting disaster. Yet disaster did come. Asterisk. As Astra 9 reached peak altitude, the vessel passed directly through the path. Of a sudden, violent solar flare, a burst of radiation so intense that it knocked out nearly every electrical system in an instant. Lights flickered, consoles died. The vessel's stabilizers froze mid-adjustment. The autopilot shut off, leaving the entire aircraft drifting in the upper stratosphere like a stranded island of metal. Asterisk inside the cabin. Chaos erupted. People clung to rails as the ship lurched. Emergency lights struggled to stay on, flickering red against white panic. Oxygen warning alarms shrilled through the corridors. Without power, the life support system could not regulate air pressure or scrub carbon dioxide efficiently. There were screams, shouts, prayers, and then, amid the confusion, a voice cut through the static-filled intercom, level and calm. As a steady heartbeat. Asterisk. This is Commander Nova Reyes. Stay with me. We're going to make it home. Asterisk. To the passengers, she was simply their mission commander. Quiet, competent, respected. But Nova Reyes carried a past few of them knew about. When the main controls failed, the only operable station was the auxiliary guidance pod, a cramped, spherical cockpit located beneath the ship's midsection. It wasn't meant for full control. It was meant for data recalibration, emergency stabilization checks, and neural link experiments. Asterisk. But in that moment, it was Astra 9's last functioning brain. Asterisk. Reyes strapped herself inside, closed the pod's protective shell around her shoulders, and connected her neural interface, a crown-like array of metallic filaments, directly to the ship's crippled core. The connection sent a pulse through her spine as her own heartbeat sensed with the faint, faltering rhythm of the vessel. Asterisk. Her vision blurred at the edges as abstract holographic symbols floated across her internal display. The neural link system drew heavily on her focus, demanding absolute concentration. A normal pilot trained for months for even partial neural steering. Reyes did not have months. She had seconds. Asterisk. Still. The ship responded. Asterisk. Barely, but it responded. Asterisk. She could feel Astra 9. Fighting gravity, fighting the spinning, fighting the fall. Asterisk. With her pulse tied to the craft's data stream, she made corrections with microscopic shifts of thought, lifting the nose a fraction, tilting the wings toward the least turbulent pockets of upper atmospheric drag. Her breathing slowed until it matched the vessel's turbulent oscillations. Asterisk. Passengers felt the shift immediately. The wild tumbling eased. The violent shaking smoothed. People could stand again. Whispers filled the halls. Asterisk. Someone's controlling. The ship. Asterisk. Who's piloting us? Asterisk. Is it Commander Reyes? How? Asterisk. Outside the pod, Only a handful of engineers realized the truth. Nova Reyes had linked herself directly to a failing machine at an altitude where no human should be conscious. Asterisk at 300,000 feet, the thin mixture of atmosphere and near vacuum should have rendered the ship uncontrollable. Yet Reyes, through grit, instinct, and experience, kept Astro-9 steady enough for survival. Asterisk. None of the passengers knew the toll it was taking on her mind. Asterisk. None knew what it meant to connect one's consciousness to a dying vessel. Asterisk. None knew the memories she fought to suppress. Memories tied to a name she had sworn never to use again. Asterisk. But the sky knew. The ship knew. And deep in the auxiliary pod, the ancient call sign she had buried long ago began to whisper back to her like a forgotten friend resurrected by crisis. Asterisk. Her legendary call sign, Skylark. The world had forgotten that name, but the sky had not, and soon. Neither would the F-35 escorts rising from below. The neural interface hummed softly against Nova Reyes's temples, a vibration that felt half like electricity and half like memory. As Astro-9 drifted downward from its impossible altitude, she tightened her grip on the command spheres embedded in the auxiliary pod's armrests. Every instinct, every shred of her training, every lesson from the past fought through the static clouding her vision. Asterisk. Most people assumed Reyes was simply brilliant, a gifted pilot, a disciplined commander. What they didn't know was that, for years she had lived with a ghost named Skylark. It wasn't just a call sign. It was a myth whispered across academies, a legend murmured in flight hangars, a badge worn by someone whose flying defied logic. Reyes had once been the youngest pilot ever accepted into the high-altitude maneuver program, mastering movements that seemed more like dance than aviation. Other pilots described watching her fly as if the sky itself was teaching her in real time. But there had been the mission, the one that changed everything. A test flight team of 5, a storm no forecast had predicted, systems that flickered, then died. Asterisk. And a moment where she had to choose between two equally lethal possibilities. She saved the civilians on the ground. She didn't save her squadron. Asterisk. And when the investigation cleared her, calling her decision an act of unmatchable instinct and necessary sacrifice, she refused every medal. She resigned from advanced test flight. She stopped responding to anyone who called her Skylark. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a ghost wearing a uniform. Asterisk. And so she fled to the edges of aviation to research flights, civilian missions, remote, atmospheric studies where no one spoke of dogfights, maneuvers, or legendary instincts. She believed she had buried Skylark for good. Asterisk. But fate has a way of resurrecting what we run from. Asterisk. As she guided Astro-9 through the upper stratosphere, she could feel that old version of herself reawakening. The thin air danced along the vessel's hull, whispering the familiar language of turbulence and thermal shifts. Her neural link display flickered with currents and drag coefficients, reading her thoughts as she read the sky. Asterisk. Easy. Easy. She murmured as the left wing dipped toward a sheer stream. Asterisk. Instinct took over. The kind of instinct no manual taught. The kind of instinct that once made her legendary. Asterisk. Passengers were unaware of the battle inside the auxiliary pod. To them, the ship was stabilizing. The lights remained dim, but the air no longer tasted of fear. Some clutched hands. Some whispered thank yous to no one in particular. Some prayed. Above them, the cold void of near space watched silently. Below them, the thickening atmosphere waited like a cradle or a cliff. Asterisk. Reyes navigated the thin line between the two. Asterisk. The neural interface strained to interpret her decisions as she threaded Astro-9 toward denser air. Sweat beaded on her brow. Her fingers trembled. Neural fatigue set in, a dull ache spreading behind her eyes. She had only minutes before the mental overload became dangerous. Yet she pushed on. She could feel Astronine responding sluggishly, stubbornly, but faithfully. It was almost like flying a bird with damaged wings. And Skylark had always known how to fly injured birds home. Then, without warning, her intercom buzzed, a faint crackle, a voice distorted by distance and atmospheric. Interference. Unidentified vessel at 280,000 feet. This is F-35 Wing Ranger. Do you copy? Reyes froze. F-35s? Here? Already? She swallowed hard before pressing the transmitter. This is Commander Nova Reyes of Astronine. I'm managing partial control. Requesting descent corridor and escort. There was silence. Then, another voice, younger, stunned, answered. Commander. Did you say Reyes? As in Skylark Reyes? Her chest tightened. No, she answered firmly. Just Reyes. But the sky had already whispered her secret. Below her, too. F-35s altered course, rising to meet the falling research vessel. Their pilots spoke excitedly over internal channels, marveling at the controlled glide pattern of a ship that logically should not have been controllable at this altitude. And as they climbed toward Astronine, their instruments confirmed the impossible. The ID beacon of the auxiliary pod was transmitting one word, Skylark 01. Rhea stared at the flickering output. She had never activated that tag, but the ship had remembered her. The sky had remembered her, and soon the escorts would as well. Her past was coming for her, not to haunt her, but to fly beside her. And there was no turning back now. At 60,000 feet, the two F-35 Lightning II jets finally broke through the upper haze and caught their first glimpse of the massive Astronine research vessel. It looked like a wounded Leviathan drifting through thinning light, its metallic plates shimmering like scales under the sun. But what stunned the pilots wasn't its appearance, it was its motion. The ship should have been tumbling, uncontrollably. It should have been in free fall. It should have been breaking apart. Instead, it was descending in an incredibly controlled glide like a giant bird navigating invisible currents. Lieutenant Mara Briggs, the lead F-35 pilot, inhaled sharply. There's no way. How was it holding formation like that with no primary controls? Her wingman, Lieutenant Jonah Pierce, zoomed in on his HUD. That can't be right. What? The auxiliary pod ID tag. It's broadcasting Skylark 01. Briggs nearly choked. No, that's impossible. Skylark retired. Years ago. Inside the auxiliary pod, Nova Reyes vaguely heard the distant hum of approaching jets. Through the neural interface, her senses were hypersensitive. She could almost feel the pressure waves the F-35s carved in the air as they approached. In her earpiece, a calm but awestruck voice crackled through. Astronine, this is Ranger Wing. We have visual. Are you really Skylark? Reyes closed her eyes for half a heartbeat. The name struck her like both a wound and a lifeline. This is Commander Reyes, she replied. Focus on opening a corridor to runway 9. We have 200 passengers on board and life support is unstable. Pierce whispered on a private channel. She didn't deny it. Briggs responded quietly. She didn't have to. They had heard the legend. Every pilot had stories of evasive maneuvers that defied physics. Stories of a pilot who could sense airflow changes moments before they occurred. Stories of Skylark A woman whose instincts bordered on supernatural ** Briggs. Switch to full escort mode. *. Copy that, Commander. We're forming a descent guide. Stay locked to our vector. * Reyes didn't have the strength to answer verbally. Instead, she sent a micro-response through her neural link's flight pattern. The F-35s recognized the maneuver instantly. *. Holy. She just answered with a course correlation, Pierce. Breathed. And like that, the old dance began. The two jets flanked the asthmatic, wounded Astronine, carving a clean corridor through the thickening atmosphere. Reyes matched their pitch, velocity, and rotation with inhuman precision, redirecting air drag, adjusting descent angle, and transmitting minute corrections through sheer mental endurance. *. Every second was agony. Every breath was a battle. But she flew. * As the trio broke through 40,000 feet, Briggs saw the first violent tremors shake Astronine. *. Commander, you're taking thermal stress. Pulling back is recommended. Reyes forced her mind to focus through the static. Negative. I have to hold angle or the rear stabilizers will shear off. The jets adjusted to cover her. They matched her descent. * They trusted her. Way pilots once trusted Skylark to lead them through storms. * Pierce whispered, half in awe, half in disbelief. She's doing this manually. Through the link? At this altitude? * Briggs said nothing. Her eyes burned with respect. She's not just doing it, she answered. She's saving them. * Radio chatter crackled through national aviation frequencies as more controllers became aware of the situation. It wasn't long before command centers, airfields, and emergency responders were all watching live descent telemetry. * The world had no idea they were witnessing a miracle. * As the vessel passed 20,000 feet, oxygen systems flickered on and off, trying to revive themselves. Passengers felt the cabin pressure stabilize slightly. People gasped in relief, unaware of the trio of pilots guiding them down. Inside the pod, Reyes's vision blurred. Her fingers went numb. The neural overload was reaching critical. But she could hear the faint responses of the two jets, their voices steady, reassuring. *. Stay with us, Commander. * You've got this, Skylark. She didn't correct them this time. She didn't have the strength, and for the first time in years, she didn't have the desire, because right now, she wasn't hiding from who she used to be. She wasn't burying the past. She was using it, and soon the runway would be in sight. By the time Astronine descended below 10,000 feet, nearly every air traffic controller along the coast was tuned into the unfolding emergency. Runway 9, a reinforced landing strip typically reserved for emergencies, was cleared of all control. Traffic. Emergency crews lined every edge. Fire trucks, medical teams, structural engineers, flight response coordinators. The sky trembled with a low, metallic groan as Astronine sliced through the final layers of thick atmosphere. Heat ripples shimmered around the hull. Pieces of scorched insulation peeled off and drifted like ashes behind the vessel. Inside the pod, Nova Reyes felt consciousness flickering like a candle in a storm. The neural interface strained. Every warning light she knew, and several she didn't, flashed across her internal display. She whispered, voice hoarse, hold together, just a little longer. The F-35 escorts stayed tight beside her, forming a triangle formation that made the descent as stable as physics. Aloud, Briggs radioed the ground. Tower, we're bringing Skylark in. Prepare full foam deployment. The ground controller's voice cracked. Copy that? Did you say Skylark? But Briggs was already switching frequencies. Commander Reyes, runway 9 is open, bringing you in at a 7-degree glide slope. Just follow our lead. Reyes struggled to focus. Her mind felt like it was being pried apart by static and gravity. The link pulsed violently as Astra 9 shuddered under atmospheric drag. At 6,000 feet, one of the vessel's secondary stabilizers snapped off entirely, spiraling away in a fiery arc. The entire craft lurched. Passengers screamed as the floor tilted 20 degrees. Reyes bit down hard, forcing her mind to correct the spin with microscopic adjustments. Her vision whitened at the edges. Briggs shouted, "We're losing lateral stability, Commander. Compensate." "I'm trying." The neural link surged with a blinding jolt. Reyes cried out as she slammed back against the pod seat. For a second, she saw nothing but white. Then, like a dim sunrise through fog, the vessel responded. Wobbly. Weak. But alive. Briggs exhaled, voice trembling with relief. "That's it. That's Skylark." Reyes didn't argue. The name didn't hurt anymore. Not when 200 lives were at stake. At 3,000 feet, the runway lights became visible, a shimmering river of safety stretching across the earth. Emergency foam coated the strip to soften impact. Crews braced. Cameras rolled. The world held its breath. Reyes steadied Astra 9's nose. Her heart felt like it was beating through molasses. Her breathing was ragged. Just a little more. At 1,000 feet, the F-35 escorts peeled away, taking protective flanking positions. The final descent belonged to Reyes alone. The neural interface buzzed violently. The pod smelled faintly of ozone. Her limbs shook, uncontrollably. But her mind. Her pilot's mind held every contour of the runway, every gust of wind. Every creaking protest of the vessel's failing structure. She felt them all, as clearly as she'd once felt the air beneath her fighter's wings. And she guided Astra 9 down the way Skylark always flew. Instinct first, fear second, courage always. At 300 feet, the emergency landing wheels deployed. With a tortured metallic scream, at 100 feet, the vessel dipped low enough for its shadow to stretch across the entire strip. At 40 feet, Reyes whispered, "Now." She tilted the nose, aligned the wings, released what remained of the thrusters. Astra 9 hit the runway. The impact thundered across the coastline. Sparks exploded from under the landing gear. The nose dipped dangerously, then lifted as emergency. Foam caught the weight. The vessel groaned, screeched, scraped, and slid nearly half a mile before grinding to a trembling stop. Silence. For 3 seconds. The world was silent. Then the cabin doors burst open. Passengers poured into the open air, crying, cheering, collapsing, praying, laughing. Their gratitude was messy, raw, and overwhelming. Ground crew rushed toward the auxiliary pod. When they opened it, Reyes slumped forward, barely conscious, pale from neural fatigue. Briggs and Pierce, having landed moments earlier, sprinted across the tarmac. Briggs knelt beside Reyes, her expression a mixture of awe and gratitude. Commander. That was legendary. Reyes managed a faint smile through exhaustion. "I'm no legend." Pierce shook his head, eyes burning. "Ma'am." After today, the sky disagrees. News reports would soon call it the miracle at 300,000 feet, but for the 200 people who survived, it wasn't a miracle. It was the return of someone the world had needed, someone who never stopped being a hero, even when she stopped believing it. It was the return of Skylark, and the sky had finally welcomed her home.